Wes Buck Show. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Hope you're doing well on this actually a little bit overcast, a little bit cloudy afternoon here in the beautiful city of Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you guys all for joining us. I say it every week, and I mean it a little more. Every Wednesday, it means a little bit more for you to join us here around Drag Racing's water cooler to talk about all the happenings in the sport, of which there are aplenty. Join us in conversation, and as I say, share the gospel of drag racing. Thank you guys a ton. If you don't mind, click like, click share, help us spread the message. If you're watching along on YouTube or via dragillustrated.com, please click subscribe, man. Join, be a part of the movement so you get notified every single week when we do things like this. We got an action-packed show for you guys today, which this may have been the first Wednesday in a hot minute that I genuinely felt like, oh man, we've got to deliver. Like, to one up the last couple of weeks, we had Don Schumacher on here talking about selling his team, and then a mere 7 days later, we have his son on here, Tony Schumacher, the Sarge, one of the best to ever do it. 8-time world champion Top Fuel racer on here to talk about his first win with a brand new team owner. I mean, it's just been one thing after another, but we're going for it, guys. We're going to do our best to deliver a barn burner as always. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes, I think about 10 minutes, by the one and only Alex Laughlin, NHRA Top Fuel sensation. He's got a deep, long, historic resume in the sport of drag racing. He's won many of the big ones. He's won the World Door Slammer Nationals. He's won Lights Out. He's done many things, and this weekend he's going to throw his hat into the ring with No Prep Kings as they roll into the next stop on season 5 of the show. They're rolling to Osage Casino, Tulsa Raceway Park for the filming of the next episode of Street Outlaws No Prep Kings. We will also be joined by a dear friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated, Victor Alvarez from Bradenton Motorsports Park. It's no secret he's been pouring tons of time, energy, and resources into not really revitalizing, but just leveling up the beautiful facility down there in Bradenton. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals, the 51st annual Snowbird Outlaw Nationals that'll be coming up this winter down in Florida. And what was a sellout program? He sold out 50 tech cards for this event for Pro Mod alone, under 5 minutes. It is a murderer's row of Pro Modified badasses. If you haven't seen the list, log on to dragillustrated.com. Maybe JT can throw the link to that post on the website in the comments, because it's a literal who's who of the biggest names, some of the brightest stars the sport of door slammer drag racing has to offer. We will round out the show with a visit from another friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated, Doug Winters, Pro Mod veteran, a guy that has been integrally involved in kind of getting the NHRA Pro Mod operation headed in the right direction over the course of the last year. He's been a long-time competitor in the series. You've seen him in IHRA, you've seen him in NHRA, you've seen him in ADRL, you've seen him all sorts of different sanctions and series. Great guy who's got a lot of insight he's going to share with us. And he's already on the property, from what I gather, at Heartland Park, Topeka for the next stop on the NHRA Drag Racing Tour. Before I get any further, though, real quick, huge shout out to our sponsors. We can't do this show without these folks, guys, so make sure you support the companies that support us. You can see them over my shoulder. You can see them in the bottom of the screen. Stroud Safety, 100% made in America safety equipment. Elite HP, the world leader in new and used high-performance race cars, engines, and parts. Of course, Flow Racing, who will, I actually watched a whole lot of racing on Flow this past weekend, and of course, they'll be streaming a multitude of events this coming weekend, including the PDRA's return to Maple Grove. Redline Synthetic Oils, holy cow, Mark Beatty and the gang. We had Art from Redline on here a couple of weeks ago. Huge shout out to all those companies for supporting us and being a part of this and helping us do, like I say, the Lord's work, spread the gospel of drag racing. Before I go any further, let me check in with my partners in crime here. What's going on, JT? What's up, Mike?
What's up, dude?
What's up?
We got JT back.
I know.
I'm
man.
back, baby. I'm back.
Oh,
He
my
made it back,
goodness.
all tanned and ready to go from his month-long stint in Florida.
I don't know about
Dude,
ready to go, man. I kind of wanted to stay. I ain't gonna lie to you.
It looked like fun, though.
It was. I mean,
He's gonna buy a place down there now, so we can all go. Maybe we'll shoot the show from there.
Mike, turn the audio up on your. It feels like you're a little quieter than normal. Is there a dial somewhere? Yeah. It doesn't even feel like your mic's working.
Okay. Give me a minute.
Nope. It's better.
Okay.
Maybe you just have to be closer to it.
All right. Let me crank it up.
just
Is
talk
that better?
louder, Mike.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's
Sounds
getting
great,
better.
buddy.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Hey,
think
guys.
it's adjusting. I think it's the software adjusting.
It might be the software adjusting. Hey, thanks for joining me. Before we get any further, hell of a weekend in the sport of drag racing, right? I mean, we've seen this a lot, and I've seen some posts on social media, and I just want to kind of get your guys' opinion. It feels like there's a unique moment in time happening. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. We're still dealing with, kind of the ramifications of the global pandemic. Now we're on monkeypox or whatever, and there's all sorts of weirdness in the political world. But drag racing, let's be honest, man. It's been a minute since I've felt this kind of momentum for the entire sport. I don't know if you guys share that sentiment, but I look at Norwalk, Ohio this past weekend at Summit Motorsports Park for the 45th annual Night Under Fire there, a long-time presentation of the Pdra family. The place was freaking packed, absolute capacity crowd. Firebird International Raceway up in the northwestern part of the country. Places packed out for their independent program. We saw a hell of a crowd at the Big Dog Shootout. We've seen, there's a no prep race going on at Shady Side. Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods were at Empire Dragway and put on a great show. I mean, it feels special. Do you kind of sense the same thing?
It's like the drag racers said, pandemic, recession, hold my beer. Because really, everybody at first, everybody hit the pause button a while back when the pandemic started. But then it was like just a couple weeks in and we realized, oh shit, like people are buying parts. They're working on their program and
every company we talked to was up like 20 or 30%.
Way up
over the course of the pandemic.
And it's just continued. And then when they started opening these places back, I think people were like, once you take it away from them, they realize, oh shit, I want that. I want to go. It sucks not going.
A newfound appreciation for it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think what was interesting this weekend, this past weekend, it was the independent shows. Like you said, these exhibition independent shows. Last weekend or the weekend prior, we had Pdra Pro Stars. I feel like these events, we talk about them a lot, that they're important to the sport, and to see those places packed this weekend. This is not an NHRA national event. Now, I know that the Norwalk deal had a lot of NHRA stars, but for those events, those type of events to be packed out, it speaks to the power of a big, well-promoted, one-off event that is as much of a show as it is a drag race.
I think that when I watched, you know what? Matter of fact, before we talk any more about it, let's go ahead and check out this week's episode of the 330, and it'll give everybody a glimpse of the things we're talking about. 3 minutes and 30 seconds that encapsulates almost an entire weekend in the sport of drag racing. I'll roll the tape right now. Let's go full screen on this bad boy. Holy moly, what a video. I mean, it's like, I don't even know what to say about it. Sorry, I'm trying to get us all back in our normal spots. Like, was that as mind-blowing to you? I mean, there was a couple of things I forgot about. First off, let's talk real quick, and I do believe we are joined in the green room. I think I see him down here, the one, the only Alex Laughlin. We'll bring Alex on the show in just a minute, but I want to fly through this real quick and just briefly recap the weekend, guys. Look at Big Dog Dragway. Piedmont Dragway and the Big Dog Shootout. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm a racetrack in the United States of America right now, a Saturday night kind of 8th mile shootout type track, I've got a program like that. I mean, 12 cars, one night only, Thursday night. They run the whole show from like 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. or 11, whatever. It's a tightly packed together show. It's fast paced. And man, I really think that deal, I'm very proud because we've seen this class, this shootout kind of revitalized here in 2022. All of a sudden, early in the year, it was like 6 cars, 7 cars. Now there's twice that. There's a dozen cars showing up. And seriously, guys, wrap your head around a dozen 3-second door slammers, getting it on a Thursday night at a nitty-gritty 8th mile drag race, driving through the grass. Jason Harris was throwing dirt at 197 miles an hour.
That's
I mean, it's just special.
You have to be willing to drive through the grass at Piedmont and Farmington, or just don't even go there.
Right? I mean, I just think it's massively cool that there's an event like that. There are places packed full of people. They're betting on the starting line. There are local favorites. There's kind of new, fresh faces. We saw Jason Harris, Pdra, stand out. You saw Travis Harvey, big money bracket racer, a hired gun driver, jumping behind the wheel of a new hot rod there. Just a great weekend. Series regular Brian Schrader taking the win. Moving on down, it's really cool, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this a little bit with Alex Laughlin in just a moment, but I think it's interesting that No Prep Kings, there's so much testing going on. It used to be something that seemed like it was largely reserved for the champion of the series, Ryan Martin. By and large, you would hear just story after story after story, like Ryan was testing here, Ryan was testing there. Well, now, I mean, we've got inside sources that tell us Marty Robertson and Alex Laughlin were testing last night. You've got Justin Swanstrom testing, renting the track in Orlando to test. Do you see that thing making a real move in terms of kind of and everybody's sensitive about these things, but it seems like there's an increased level of professionalism and an increased level of, commitment to that style of racing that we're kind of watching unfold right before us.
They're going to have to. And I think they've realized that. I mean, if Ryan's putting in all that work and you're not, I mean, you're not going to compete with him. I mean, it's you either do it or you're going to play second fiddle to him.
I think that's why we see people switching combinations. I think we're going to have another combination switch this weekend. So people are really, not resting on their laurels. If they think that another combination is quicker or has the advantage, they're gonna try it. And it's Swanstrom, Marty Robertson, all these people like this, Odom, that are pouring money into this deal and attract people like Alex too. I think this is going to be a cool deal this weekend with Alex running there.
I agree, and I do think that there's something that has happened throughout the year that I find interesting. And I honestly think Manny Bajinga is one of the guys that I've seen this happen a multitude of times throughout the history of drag racing. And I think the example that I love to use the most is when Billy Glidden showed up in ADRL Extreme 10.5. There was a slew of front runners, right? The guys that had kind of made the move from Orska and the traditional outlaw 10.5 racing, 3,000 pounds and a back half car with a stock front end, right? We saw, I'm talking about guys like Marcus Burt, Jack Barfield, Steve Kirk, Mike Hill. The list goes on. There was this slew of guys that kind of evolved from traditional outlaw 10.5 into the ADRL's version, which was essentially run what you brung and hope you brung enough on 10.5Ws. Then Billy Glidden is thrown into the mix. And the level of professionalism and the level of commitment to testing and R&D and after hours and on the weekends work that Billy brought to the table immediately saw all of ADRL Extreme 10.5 elevate. They went from running 430s on the regular to being in the teens. And there was a single guy that kind of was the catalyst for that. And I honestly think Manny Bajinga in the gang with Fred, the feared red Mustang, I think he brought something of that to No Prep Kings when he came out the last 4 races they had, or their 4 races in a row, I believe, and won all 4 of the open big tire shootout category. So there's some newfound interest and some new heavy hitters that are showing up in that scene, perhaps none more so than the guy we're getting ready to be joined by. Let's dive into this. I do want to talk a little bit about, we've got to talk about Norwalk. We've got to talk about Funny Car Chaos. We've got to talk about the Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod. So much to cover, but we've got a big time guest in the green room. So let's bring him in. JT, introduce the man of the hour, the one, the only Alex Laughlin. We're probably going to have to ditch the banner there at the bottom for a little while, guys. Alex, what's up, dude?
What's up, guys? Sorry that it looks like I'm like just completely blown out on the screen here. I'm trying to move back.
No, you're good.
I got usually you got like professional setup. You know, you usually make us look bad. Yeah.
All right, so here's what happened. I got all my stuff stolen in where we were racing last Seattle. The rental car got broken into, and I lost my laptop and everything. So I'm starting completely fresh from here.
So you're using a telescope now, or what is that?
I don't know what's up with it. I tested this thing out in every way that I usually do, and now
that might be the funniest thing Mike Carpenter's ever said in his life. That was a killer one. I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I'm sure there's not all these details you can share, but for those of us that follow you on social media, of which there are millions and millions that follow you on social media, we saw the window broken out of your car. What the hell happened, man? I'm sorry. It's a bummer. I still can't wrap my head around doing that to somebody, but what all went on with that deal?
Oh man, it's such a long story, and there's so much of it that I feel like I can't completely tell about it. But Cassie and I, my fiance, were in dinner one night. We went in during daylight, came out, and the window was knocked out and all of our stuff was stolen. And the police weren't really willing to do much. And so we handled it ourselves, and we were able to track our Apple products and show up to their house the next day. And the story is very long, and it sounds like something from a movie from there. But we did get all of our stuff back, but everything has been wiped. And I had already bought a new computer. And so that's what I'm running right now. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of work to do on it.
I think it looks fine. That's the part of my body that I like the most. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? If my nose wasn't in there,
I guess we could all move in.
Let's all lean forward.
Yeah, everybody zoom in. Make Alex feel better.
Oh my goodness, man. Well, hey, let's get into it, dude. I'm glad you got your stuff back. What a bummer. Let's dive right into this No Prep Kings thing. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell us the story.
Tell you, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. You know what, man? The racing community, drag race, we get ourselves in some shit out here. It's, you know what I mean? It's just funny. I don't know if it's like the travel, that obviously has a lot to do with it, but it just seems like this is I don't know. The drag racing community is kind of like a lightning rod for interesting situations. Like we just find ourselves in some wild ordeals more often than not.
This is the most wild Western situation that I've ever experienced or even heard of in real life, in my life.
That's so funny, man. Yeah, unbelievable. Well, hey, dude, tell me a little bit about what sparked seeing you. I mean, it was pretty big news yesterday and Monday. You started kind of leaking it out there that you were planning on going to No Prep Kings, the filming of the next episode for season 5, I believe it is. Street Outlaws No Prep Kings coming up Friday and Saturday at Tulsa, Oklahoma at Osage Casino, Tulsa Raceway Park. I know that's something that's kind of been on your radar for a while. What kind of take us through what got you excited about this one in particular? I guess it's a little bit in our backyard.
Yeah, I actually had no intentions of really going out there until they were going to have the Top Fuel grudge race. And Palmer asked me if I'd be willing to go. And I said, man, I would love to, but I'm really not a good spectator at all. And so, yes, I'll go, but I'm going to bring something, and I felt like the Corvette was pretty well ready at the moment. We ended up, finding about 5 full days worth of stuff to do to it in between, which to be honest, it needed to be done anyways. And the car's just been sitting there collecting dust. And again, this thing is not set up for no prep. I cannot fit a big tire under it. It's got a 33-inch tire where everybody else is running 36s. I've got the same transmission and ratios in the transmission as we were running in the radial tire in RVW. And Yeah, I mean, it's not really set up to be doing this per se, but we went out last night and made a couple of runs, and the car is fast. I think it's plenty fast, to be honest.
It's exciting, man, and that's kind of where I was headed with this. Is one of the things that we continually hear about is and this is kind of the curse of heads up drag racing, right? Is that it gets out of control in a hurry. The money gets big, the eyeballs and the exposure continue to grow, and it just escalates. And I do think there's a lot of people kind of on the sidelines looking at No Prep Kings right now going, holy cow, pro line, screw blowers, turbos, brand new cars. I mean, we've seen a half dozen brand new cars purpose built for No Prep Kings show up. Kind of as someone who's seen the sport of drag racing from a lot of different angles, you've had a long career in pro stock, a successful run in pro mod, drag radial, of course, with your win at Lights Out and participation in many of Donald Long's biggest events down there in Valdosta, Georgia. What is your take on the kind of rapid escalation of No Prep Kings? Because it seems like, I mean, you were testing with Marty Robertson last night. Marty comes out with a brand new, freshly rebuilt car from Larry Jeffers Race Cars, the well-known Badfish Barracuda. It's got a pro-charged Hemi in it. They see the way things are going. Now we see on social media the last 48 hours, this bad boy's got a screw blower in it. And I do think it kind of blows people's minds that these are supposed to be, this is outlaw street racing guys. They are switching engine combos race to race. Holy crap.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious that it's not what it used to be. It started out, and one of the things that they really tried to hang on to for the longest time was these are cars that the guys built in their garages at home, and they were still working a full-time job and just struggling to be able to get to the track, and now they're showing up in the same rigs that we've got on the NHRA circuit. I saw some cars roll out of the trailer yesterday that cost more than my entire house, I guarantee you. And it's unbelievable. And so I don't know if it's the TV money or if it's just the, people getting into it because it's on TV and whatnot. But there is a lot of dollars in and around the No Prep Kings or just No Prep scene these days. And so, I've been, kind of watching it since the beginning as so many other people, and it has just, it's passed up. There's a point where I felt like my stuff was overkill for the show. And then now it's to the point that my stuff is behind, technically.
It's wild to me. Because like, how can you even imagine having a car like that, like your Corvette, with a screw blown Hemi in it, tuned by Frankie and Paul Taylor? Like, this is a high level hot rod anywhere in the world, but you're right. I mean, it is a fairly run of the mill combination that exists in No Prep Kings right now. And I do wonder, like, is there because we've seen it with this show that the Street Outlaws show, like the OG show, as they refer to it. We saw all those guys move toward the pro mods, the purpose built cars. And it seemed like they lost a little bit of ground with their fan base. And I look at No Prep Kings and I wonder, does that same risk exist there? Is it upon us? Because these cars are, like, as you said, they're a far cry from, the car Chuck built, Chuck Seitzinger built in his garage or whatever, a back half Mustang. We're a long ways from there.
Yeah, and that's how everything goes. Historically in drag racing, look at Pro Mod. Back in the day, you're able to run Pro Mod for, I'm not going to say pennies on the dollar, but compared to what it is now,
Absolutely.
It's not the same. And that's what ends up ruining categories. It's because big money gets in and starts winning, and everybody's trying to, keep up with the Joneses, and not everybody's able to do it. And, all it takes is a couple of Ryan Martins out there to end up having, essentially too much money or support. Let's just call it support.
Yeah.
That it's discouraging to other people, and they start realizing, I don't have that support. I'm never going to be able to get there. Why am I chasing this? Maybe it's time to stop, and that's when things start going downhill. Even in the RVW scene, whenever I was lucky to get in it when we did, I was lucky to get that win at Lights Out when we did, because that was at its peak. It has never been as big ever since, and that's what's been happening. started out the same. They were supposed to be cars that people could relate to, and it turned into now full-blown pro mods out there on 315 radials. And I'm a prime example. My car couldn't keep up. It's a full-bodied car, stock wheelbase, and I couldn't keep up. So, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That was some of the best racing I've ever done, and I don't do it anymore because I can't keep up.
And it was like, I think the expectation became, you got to run 350s, right? Or honestly, maybe high 40s. There's a handful of them who have done it. So it escalated so quickly. And I think sometimes when that happens, when the growth curve or the escalation goes from like this, like a steady incline, to this, and it's typically based on money when that happens. But it is an interesting point, and I don't know that there's any fixing it. I think we could probably, stare at each other all day long and never really get, because it's the inherent, this is racers going to race. We're going to find a way to shorten the fuse. We're going to find a way to go quicker, faster, no matter what. But it is interesting. And I do wonder how much, because one of the things you said, like, it's fast. I wonder how much the fact that the scoreboards the clocks aren't on at these No Prep Kings races. Do you get a kick out of that style of racing where it's a little secretive? It feels like we're in a parking lot, or an industrial area somewhere, and everybody's lying to one another. Because I think that we've seen it time and time again, when you're not like airing out your dirty laundry being like your car's slower than everybody else's. When no one has to acknowledge that and it's not shoved down everyone's throat, it does seem like it's just more assumed that every car there is capable of winning.
Yeah, I will agree with that completely, because my exit, for the most part, on the RVW scene was because they were running in the bottom 50s and then dipped into the 40s. And those numbers alone, for me, I said, I cannot do that. I know what they're running. I know I cannot run that. So there's no point in me continuing to waste my time and money to go. So I couldn't agree with that more.
And you have to explain it. I mean, I think to somebody like you that's got sponsors and has a world of supporters around you, they're like, hey man, those guys run 350s. Why do we run 370s? You know what I mean? And it's like, well, that guy's got a metric ton of money, right? I mean, he carries it in a trailer, right? And that's a hard thing to have to explain to folks. And I do believe that when the scoreboards are off, the illusion is greater that everybody's got similar stuff. These are a bunch of really fast cars, and who knows where things are going to shake out. So what are you most excited about when it comes to No Prep Kings this weekend? We hear obviously some great competition. I think we can all agree that this isn't scripted. This isn't, the conclusion's not foregone. You guys, you're going to go up there and you're going to drag race, but are you excited about the fanfare, a new audience? I mean, you've had exposure to this group of people, not a ton, but a little bit over the years. What are you most excited about?
I will start off with saying that I'm not huge. I don't worry too much about what people think for the most part, but I am the most excited to be able to go out and make a statement and, for lack of a better term, shut some people up. Because, in the radial scene, in the NHRA scene, I'm the nice guy, right? I've never done anybody wrong. I'm always the nice guy. But for some reason, and I guess it was because of the Street Outlaw stuff from the Gas Monkey days and the Richard Rawlings things, and people that just didn't like him and associated me with him, whatever kind of guy you do or don't think that he is, it ruined me on that side of racing. And these people just attack me, and if I put anything like no prep in a social media post or anything like that, it's like these vultures just start diving in. They're just like, we hate you. Is there anything that we can do to get you out of here and just never come back? And it's like, what the heck, man? Like, I
don't know that you did anything to deserve that, man. It's crazy to me. But no, I'm excited to see and hear back from you just as to how you're received by that group of people, because it's interesting. We've heard it here. There's a variety of different people that have dived into those waters and are met with some kind of polarizing reactions, right? You got some guys where it's like, hey, come on in. We're excited to have you. But then on the other side of the coin, there's been plenty of instances where it's like, hey, man, this is our deal. Don't come over here screwing it up. And I'm anxious to see. It was crazy. More than made a post. And Jim Howe, a regular on the show, was calling you out, looking for action on Friday night. And I'm going, man, I think that as good as it is for what let's call it traditional drag racing, like NHRA pro level drag racing, for you to be there, I think it's a victory. I really do, Alex. I genuinely mean it, that it's a good thing for our sport to have an ambassador such as you on that side of the fence, even if it's only for a weekend. But on the flip side, I think they're excited. I think some of these guys would love to be, opposite you on the starting line and be able to, try to say they got one on you. Right? I mean, are you looking for some of that? Do you anticipate some side action or some grudge night type stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already had several people reaching out, trying to set up a grudge race and whatnot. And I'm certainly down for some of that. I think that that's fun, and I think that it's cool that they want to race me. Because I feel like it's a little bit of a feather in my hat that
Agreed.
I'm not just Joe Blow showing up out there and they're thinking like, oh, here's just another guy out here trying to make it. Like, I've never ran at a No Prep Kings event. I've hardly done any of this before, and they're already chomping at the bit to be able to line up against me like I'm somebody, which we don't know what the heck we're doing out there, and we're just basically gonna fake it till we make it. But like I said, the car ran pretty good last night. It was the rear gear that we put in it, the drive shaft sensor pickup wasn't working perfectly, and it was kind of driving all over the traction control a little bit. And even with that and cutting cylinders and timing and all of that, I'm telling you, the car is still fast. And that's one of the cool things too about it. There not being times up on the scoreboard, because it looks incredibly fast. Like, I saw some of the other guys out there run last night, and kind of hearing through the grapevine like what they did run. I'm like watching them go down the track. I thought they're absolutely moving. And now knowing what we're running and what we looked like, we're definitely moving also.
Well, and I saw a video as well, and I'm like, okay, I think Homeboy's got a hot rod. What do you make?
We've got a clip of it.
Can we play that video? Yeah, play that video real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, it does look fast. I mean, clearly it looked like a good run, sounded good. A couple things. It's got to feel good to be back in a door car, right? God bless Top Fuel drag racing. I'm a big fan, but I was actually a little salty when the world of door slammer racing lost you to one of those long skinny cars. God bless them, but did it feel good to be back behind the wheel of a door car?
I will tell you that obviously compared to the radial times that we've ran, we're nowhere close. We've been in bottom 360s on small tires in that car, and we weren't even close to that last night. And it felt like a rocket ship, because I have completely gotten used to the Top Fuel stuff now, and it's so hard to describe the differences in them. They're so different, and they're both difficult in their own ways. But last night was such a quick reminder of how difficult or just different that it is in a door car. And I was, around about 400ths slower last night, right off the trailer, my first run. And I got to the end of the track, and I'm just hooping and hollering because I felt like we just turned the world around, because it feels so different. And the rest of the guys were like, see, man, coming from a guy that drives a Top Fuel car now, just getting this excited about, this sluggish run in a door car, and he's this pumped. Like, that is a testament to how awesome the door cars really are.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think back, and I don't want to name names, but there have been plenty of times that someone has jumped right out of a Nitro Funny car or right out of a Top Fuel dragster and jumped into a Pro Mod, and the next thing you know, they're barrel rolling or they're on the roof, because it is a dramatically different ordeal. I mean, you're talking about left-hand drive suspension, right? Front and rear suspension. It's just a whole new world. Floppy tires. I mean, it's just a whole new world. And I think it's good for I mean, I keep a running list of how many pro mod drivers are active, is what I call. And my list right now has 171 names on it.
Gosh, that's crazy.
I mean, people don't realize this. There's 171 people by my count, and I'm not saying how accurate it is. It's the best we can do, but there's 171 guys or gals that have earned points in NHR or in pro mod drag racing this year, some walk of the pro mod life. And it's good for them to hear that, right? Because I believe it's the universal language of drag racing. As much as I have an infinite amount of respect for Top Fuel and Funny Car, when I look at something that's like scalable and there's a massive inventory of cars and it really feels like there's room to get up and grow, 171 bad to the bone door slammers, those guys need to hear a Top Fuel pilot say, hey, that's a deal right there. So thank you for that, because I think everybody that puts on a fire suit and slams a door shut on a pro mod style car this weekend, they should have their chest puffed out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I'm super pumped to be able to go up there and run with these guys and see what all of the hype is about. And not that it's just hype. I mean, it's a heck of a deal that they've got going on there. Sam Corcus, Jim Hughes, the guys out there. Now they've got Andy Carter from the Texas Motorplex helping out. And I think that this thing is still growing. It may not be all the way to the peak yet, but it is nice, to see it still continuing to grow, to be able to dip our toe in the water a little bit and give these guys a shot, or give us a shot at racing these guys. And I'm pumped. I'm especially pumped for some of the call outs. There's one in specific that I absolutely would love to run. I'm not going to mention any direct names, but it rhymes with
come on.
Shire Shaw Shamaro.
Well, that's Pig Latin, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. Is like what class you're going to be running in, and if there's any call outs that you've taken already or any call outs that you want to make.
I haven't taken any yet, just because I know there's a lot that are streaming in, and no offense at all to anybody out there, but if I am going to take any call outs, it needs to be somebody that's at least in the top 10 or something, because for me, I have something to prove, and I'm not going to prove anything. And absolutely no disrespect to anybody out there, but unless they're some of the front runners, I don't really have anything to gain by racing them. I would like to go out and race the top dogs and get to the finish line in front of them.
Because this whole dynamic is positive, because what this reminds me of talking to you is listening to a boxing pre-fight show or a UFC pre-fight show. Because you hear like people like, hey, who do you want to fight? And it's like, well, I don't want to fight these guys that aren't in the title contention, aren't in the mix, because I've got everything to lose and nothing to gain. Like if you go out there and smoke the tires or have a parts failure or whatever against one of the lesser known teams, or one of the, everybody gets so sensitive about this stuff, but it is what it is. If you're not one of those top 10 cars, top 5 cars, and you go out and there's a bazillion ways to lose a drag race, they've got everything to gain. They beat top NHRA Top Fuel Superstar. Shoot, I almost cussed. They'll have t-shirts made. They'll have t-shirts made by daybreak. You know what I mean? 100%. Like with Alice Laughlin's name on a tombstone or something, because they beat Top Fuel Superstar. So I just think it's interesting to be able to have that conversation, because that drag racing needs a little bit more of this, in my opinion. Like guys that recognize, hey, I don't want to just go run anybody. I want to go run the baddest dude. So JT asked, good question. How do you, it's still a little confusing to me. There's a slew of things going on at these Street Outlaws No Prep Kings events. I take it you're going into the open big tire class?
Yeah, I guess it's just what they call the futures class. Okay. I think that's about the only thing that I can get into. I'm not sure what all the categories are, to be completely honest. I haven't, as bad as this is, I haven't followed it for a while, so I'm not sure what all it fits into. But as far as the car goes, it is absolutely legal to the T as far as how they run on the invitational side. So we have the exact overdrive on the blower. We've got where we meet weight. Everything fits perfectly. So there is absolutely zero discrepancy of, well, the only reason he won is because, blah, 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 whatever. So it's a completely even match playing field.
Which is, I mean, it's fantastic. And this will be the last thing, and we'll let you go. And I thank you again for being gracious with your time, Alex. I know you guys are testing again tonight. What do you make of, there's been a lot of talk in 2022 about the people who aren't able to get in. It was a huge storyline early in the year. And here relatively recently, Manny Bajinga with his very well-known red former Pro 275 Mustang that is an extremely fast, highly competitive car. He's had a lot of success with it, a really buttoned up team, Jamie Miller, the Pro Line Camp. I mean, a really cool program, not able to get into the show despite T-shirts, flyovers. I mean, they've done everything, beach balls. They've done almost everything they can to, including win on the racetrack, to capture the attention and the imagination of the Pilgrim Discovery Channel crew there, to no avail. People seem to have forgotten that it wasn't that long ago you found yourself in a very similar situation where you go out and buy a car or build a car, purpose-built, no prep car, only to find out that it doesn't look enough like a stock one, right? And then you're selling it. What a deal. So do you relate? I mean, what do you make of that whole situation? And people, I do think, forgot that you were going to make a run at this and were all but turned away at the door.
Yeah, it's how you say politics. It's all about who you know, man. And this isn't like it's not like NHRA. This isn't a, I don't feel right saying it's not a legitimate sanctioning body, but I guess it's technically not. And it's run by people who are producing a TV show, and they'll tell you right off the bat, this is a TV show. This comes first. Second, we're having a race. And if you don't fit the criteria for their TV show, you're just not going to get in. And you certainly aren't going to get in by, making enemies or saying the wrong things to the people and getting frustrated and pushing back. Like it's one of those deals. Like they hold the golden key, and you have to kiss their feet just right to be able to get a hold of it.
It's interesting. And honestly, people, this, like I said, this is something people get really up in arms about, right? But you hit the nail on the head. It's a TV show first. Every one of those guys, from top to bottom, everyone you talk to, they'll tell you, hey, you're coming to the filming of a television show. Whenever you buy a ticket as a fan, that's what you're going to do. You're going to be on set. Right? You're not necessarily, you're like an extra. You're an extra that paid to be an extra in a lot of ways. It's a totally different dynamic. And again, kudos to that whole camp for creating this monster that they have. And I honestly, as much as I would love to see kind of an open door policy. It'd be fantastic, right? But I also totally get it. Forgive me if you've heard me go on this diatribe before, but I can't imagine a scenario where the World Wrestling, WWE, Vince McMahon or whatever would just say, hey, any tough guys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area want to come to the filming of Monday Night Raw. You know, we're going to have Stone Cold there and we're going to have John Cena there and we want to see if any of y'all can whip their ass. That's never going to happen, right? Because they got to protect their stars. They can't have Alex Laughlin come in and mop the floor with everyone because it's going to make their stars bad. It discredits them. So I totally understand it, but it's weird because it's one of those things where they can't have it both ways. We can't be the hottest thing in town. We can't be the best of the best. We can't be, the highest level of competition, but then turn folks away. Right. So it's tough because I feel like it's one of those, you can't really have your cake and eat it too. We either have to acknowledge that it's a show and it's not scripted necessarily and the results aren't planned out, but it is a very controlled environment that is a far cry from what you saw at Seattle, right? Or on the Western Swing, where you could have very easily, no matter how big of a fan following you have, you could have D&Q'd, right? You could have been on the outside looking in. And it's an interesting thing. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's even comparable. I believe that it was Pilgrim also that shoots the show Real Housewives. And so, the grand scheme of things is we're all racers. Everybody wants in on this show, right? But that's not what it's about. And you hit the nail on the head also with it's a TV show and it's the cast that they're looking for. It's not like there's just these other women that live in Dallas that are saying like, but why can't I be on it? Because I'm a Real Housewife and I live in Dallas. you have to fit and check all of the boxes.
Right. You have to have like a story to tell or a unique angle or something that makes you have to be a character. And I think that's,
Exactly.
we've been preaching this at Drag Illustrated for a long time, but I encourage people to like lean into whatever their personality is or whatever your persona is. There's perhaps no better example in all of, drag racing than Donald Long, right? I mean, if you have a conversation with Donald Long for the most part away from the racetrack or whatever, pretty easy to get along guy with, pretty normal dude. But I mean, you see him at the racetrack or when he's, in character. I mean, this guy's got a freaking fur coat on and Elvis sunglasses and a clock around his neck. It's a whole other thing. So I think we could use a little bit more of it, to be honest, man. Do you ever think, is there a world where, NHRA's got an exclusive group of Top Fuel guys like Monster Jam? They have this fleet of trucks that they fly around the country. Do you think that there's room for something like that in the drag racing space, like an entertainment property, something that's more about entertainment than it is about competition?
I think that's very interesting that you say that, because I've thought that the whole Monster Jam model is really wild, but successful at the same time. And I think that even the drag racing stuff kind of can be compared to that, because what's cool about Monster Jam is it's a show, it's a whole production, and you don't have to like anything about racing or motorsports in general to appreciate watching a 40,000-pound truck, or however much they weigh, 20,000-pound truck, get booted 40 foot into the air. Like, it's just amazing, right? And they do such a good job of putting on that production. NHRA, I think, has the possibility to be able to do that if, it always comes down to money, AKA the support. But it's a really cool model, and same thing. You don't have to know anything about racing or cars, or you don't have to care anything about anything to watch a Top Fuel car blast off to 330 miles an hour, spraying fire and blowing chunks out of the cylinders, to just think, oh my gosh, that was incredible. I cannot wait to watch the next pair.
I couldn't agree more, man. And that's been something that I actually got excited at one point. There was like in the late 2000s, like 8, 9, early teens, maybe, that it felt like the IHRA was headed that direction. And I thought, man, this could be a great yin and yang situation for the sport of drag racing, where you have NHRA over here and it's championship drag racing. This is a highly competitive deal, and it's way more about sport than it is about show. It's the best of the best. Cream rises to the top type of situation. But then the IHRA could be, kind of match that with a more entertainment based program, where maybe it's not 24 cars vying for 16 spots. It's 10 cars vying for 8, right? Or 6 cars vying for 4, or whatever. But it's a touring show, and maybe we pull the performance back a little bit to avoid explosions and avoid oil downs, right? But it's still great competition. The cars are still very fast, and the best guy and the best team's gonna win at the end of the day. But it does feel like there's room for something like that in the sport of drag racing, because that's what I see that we could probably all learn from No Prep Kings and just that whole contingent. And I like to give them credit. Most of the people that bag on that deal, I believe, are jealous of the moment in the sun that this group of people are having, this prolonged success that they're having. But man, hyper-focused on putting on a show. And I think we're seeing the difference. Alex, closing thoughts. I know you're in a video game now. How's that feel? I know that game's going to drop right around the NHRA US Nationals. I saw you post that on social. Are you still kind of going through these pinch me moments? I mean, you're sponsored by Haviland, right? You're a Hot Wheel. Now you're in a video game. What gives, man? What's next?
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Driving a Top Fuel car. Who would have ever thought any of this stuff would be a reality? I wake up every day just thinking, like, I'm absolutely living the dream, and my eyes are doing that leaky thing every time I start talking about it and getting all real with it. But it is crazy, got my third Hot Wheels car, came out this year.
Thank you. You gave me number 27. I got goosebumps.
Heck yeah, man. The Hot Wheels car, the video game, running Top Fuel, about to, blast off into this No Prep Kings thing. Blessed, to say the least.
Man, we may be your biggest fans, buddy, and we wish you nothing but luck. It's been an awesome thing to see how this whole deal has escalated. I'm using that word today. That's the word. Alex, like seeing you in a pulling truck, seeing you diesel racing, seeing you, radio racing, pro stock racing, top alcohol dragster racing, to see where you are now, man. I think we all are very proud of you, and we're thankful to have an ambassador such as you at the forefront of the sport of drag racing. Be safe, man. Thank you so much for the time. We went way long. I appreciate you.
Means more than you know. Thank you. Sorry about the whole super Zoom situation.
No, dude, I'm gonna next week's episode. We're going all in on foreheads. Mike's gonna win. Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Right. See you, buddy. Bye.
Holy, sorry, Mike. I had to say it, buddy.
That's it, man. Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna tell JT, let's just all come back in.
I don't know how close I would have to get.
What?
Hold on. Oh, that was a great.
I don't have to get that much closer to fill the whole screen with my head.
How many tier moments have we had on the show? There's been a few. I love that. Yeah. I love. Emotion,
Alex. Man. Everybody. I was reading the comments. You get as much love as you do hate, and I think that's good to be polarizing. But Alex is another one who really appreciates this stuff, who gets it, who does a lot.
Genuine good guy.
Yeah. Hot Wheels, Haviland, Gas Monkey. I mean, he's on YouTube deals with Ken Block. I mean, he's just and Ken Block's daughter. There's just a lot of stuff that goes on that I don't think he gets enough credit for.
I agree, because every one of those things, it's like it's death by 1,000 cuts, but in a good way. Does that make sense? Like, he's just slowly chipping away at it. And I feel a slight victory for the sport of drag racing every time I see our sport alongside the Hoonigan guys, right? Alongside Ken Block and his daughter. And whenever I see Alex, even though the deal and it was the way it was presented, when he was on Discovery Channel as part of that initial, ultimate grudge race thing with the Street Outlaws, that was a good thing for drag racing. And I really am happy for the guy. I think he's done a great job. And
it also shows too, like I see all these comments in the chat or whatever, how passionate these No Prep Kings fans are. Like, they will take a bullet for Justin Swanstrom or for Ryan Martin or whoever their guy is. And that is something that I think that NHRA has, but only for a certain few people. But the way that TV show is framed and the way that they build those characters and just make you latch onto them makes you want to go to bat for them on the track and off the track. And that's why anytime we have any discussion about No Prep Kings or anything related to Street Outlaws, we get passionate comments one way or the other.
A lot of these guys engage their following as well, like good or bad. I mean, Justin would hop on and talk shit with everybody, but it makes you feel like that you're a little bit more connected to them, right? That they're acknowledging, your comment or acknowledging what you said.
I think so, man. I think the guys that have the biggest following in NHRA do that exact same thing. Right. I mean, I think about, the Stevie Jacksons. I think about Matt and Angie Smith. They do a great job interacting with their fan following, and people will live in, will walk through the gates of hell for that family. Guys that put themselves out there routinely, in my opinion, it's a painful thing and it's a challenging thing at times. And it has its good and bad, right? I mean, for everything, you put something out there and someone's not going to like it or someone's going to have something to say. But if you're able to develop the thick skin required to operate in this day and age, it is a powerful tool. And you're exactly right, T. I mean, these guys have leaned into being a race car driver. They've leaned into being a cast member, and they engage their fans, and they play the game. That's as simple. That's really what it boils down to.
It's better to be polarizing and either loved or hated than no one care that you're even there.
A million percent, man. Well, hey guys, let's make sure the world knows the people that support us and stand behind the team here at Drag Illustrated and the Wes Buck Show. Gang, remember, each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell those guys that we sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and cue up our next guest. The topic of conversation as of late, no doubt, unbelievable. I've had 3 calls about this guy today, and I haven't even told him about it. He doesn't even know about it. 3
His
phone
head will be
calls.
bigger than Alex's when you get in here.
Jeez Louise, 3 phone calls today dealing with the drama from this guy. Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who has invested his heart and soul and what appears to be most of his wallet into Bradenton Motorsports Park, the one, the only, promoter of the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals, 51 years strong, Victor Alvarez. Let's go.
What's up, guys? What's up, man? How's everybody doing?
What's up, man, we're great, man. You're here with us. We couldn't be better.
I got on early and I was watching Alex Laughlin talk, and I really like that guy. I've never actually met him in person, but he just seems so genuine, and I just love seeing the young guys like coming into the sport and doing stuff, because that's the future of the sport, in my opinion. You know,
for sure.
You know, him, and obviously like there's people even younger, but I like seeing it, and he's just so passionate and real about it. It's cool.
And it's cool to see him like
really
bounce around. That's not a common thing, right? To operate in all these different spaces. But I think that's
afraid to do that.
And not be afraid
to do it. Anyone's afraid, but I feel like there is some hesitance from a lot of people to do that kind of thing, because it could go wrong. You know, and he seems unafraid of that. And I think we have to give him credit for that.
Oh, he's going to catch all kinds of shit from people if he comes out and lays an egg out there. I mean, and that's just, you know, that's the building from all the way back on that show, you know, when he's with Gas Monkey. So
I don't know. I think it's worth it. I'm glad.
Awesome.
And I think awesome. We saw this. We talked about it late last year when news broke that Paige Coughlin, part of the Jegs dynasty, the Coughlin family racing dynasty, was going to go No Prep Kings racing. And I found it so powerful that she was willing to throw her hat into the ring, not in the Invitational, not in the show that's guaranteed to be on TV, whatever, not be necessarily a cast member, but to go, you know, earn it via showing up at these No Prep Kings futures shootouts. I just think it's really cool that someone with the status in our space that Alex has is willing to do exactly that. We've seen Manny Bajinga do it. We've seen Callie Mills do it the last 2 seasons. And then that ultimately paid off for her. So I'm excited to see what's next for him, man. But speaking of what's next, Victor, as I said whenever I was introducing you, you're the talk of town, homeboy. The Snowbird Outlaw Nationals, by all accounts, lit off the hook. 50 cars sold out in under 5 minutes, man. Can you just take me? I mean, we're friends. We were really getting to know each other well. We saw Alex get emotional thinking about how far this thing has come, and I'm not trying to get you teary-eyed. But
you're not going to make me cry.
Yeah, he is. Don't let him lie. He's trying to get a tear-eye.
But, I mean, did you ever think – I mean, that's pretty unheard of, man. I mean, to sell out entries for a pro mod race, especially in Florida in the winter, I mean, that had to be surreal.
No, I mean, it was. So I think I might have mentioned this in the past, but when I bought Bradenton in 2018, and my first Snowbirds, which I was excited, and I had been to the event. I was a big fan of the event, but my first Snowbirds under my ownership, I think we had like 15 pro mods, and I can like vividly remember walking through the pits and just being just heartbroken. And I said, this will never happen again. And so I've put a lot of time and effort and work to get to this point. So to see it pay off and to see it, you know, come to fruition has just been, it's amazing. I'm shocked. I knew it would sell out, but I had no idea that it would sell out as fast as it did. And I mean, I don't even want to say how many people are on the alternate list now, because that's discouraging to be on, you know, to know there's that many cars on it.
And I totally understand your reasoning behind this, but I do think there are people that are like, I remember vividly back in 2017, we had broken news that we were going to do the World Series of Pro Mod at Denver. And we made, you know, we had a lot of new stipulations for this race that people weren't accustomed to. It was winner take all. It was invite only, all these things. And I remember flying down to the NHRA East Coast opener in Gainesville, Florida, and perusing the staging lanes, and people were here, had heard about the race, you know. So I'm, hey man, cool. But I found it very peculiar. No one asked me like, hey man, where'd you get $100,000? Everybody asked me, why invite only? And I thought it was funny because, well, the reason invite only is because of this. You're asking me about it. Everybody's talking about it.
Yep.
You and I, you know, we share a lot of these conversations offline, but, you know, I'm a big believer in that approach. Has it been, I mean, I'm sure there's been some salty sons of guns going, hey, I didn't know. I know that's hard for you. How do you handle that?
I mean, it's very difficult. And honestly, I don't have like a way that I handle it. I don't have the answer. But I mean, we're constantly talking about it behind the scenes and figuring out ways to improve and just give them more opportunities to race. But I mean, at the very same time, the reason that it's sold out is because it's exclusive, it's special, and people have to appreciate that to some extent. Because if I didn't say it's limited to this many cars and it's this much of a purse, it wouldn't have sold out. And not that it's a huge deal, you know, like the event will go on and a lot of people will come because it's a big purse and we do a good job with what we do. But it's an even bigger deal now because we have those 50 cars signed up and we can promote with those 50 cars signed up, and everybody gets their 5 seconds of fame, and it helps everything. It looks good for our sponsors, it looks good for our spectators that are planning on coming. I mean, it makes everything work a lot better. But if it wasn't this exclusive, I don't know that we'd be talking about it.
I agree, man. And that's honestly, I've had to have that conversation like 3 times today because I'm going, that's what makes this deal special. Yeah. And I get it. You were out of the loop or what happened, but that's kind of the magic of this thing. And it's interesting because the moment that goes away, the dynamic changes immediately. Yeah. As soon as it's something that anybody can get a table, it's like a restaurant. You don't want to wait, but you kind of want to wait, right? You know what I mean? I don't want to wait 2 hours, right? But I'll wait 20 minutes. I'll wait, because it's like you want there to be, that shows that this is the hot thing. It shows that it's good. It's a representation, an indication, if you will, of quality and excitement and all these other things. Let me ask you this. In a time where it seems like it, and I don't want to pour too much fuel on this, but it is concerning to folks that we're seeing tracks go away, right? Mm-hmm. Atlanta Dragway sold by the NHRA to be turned into like a warehouse or whatever. There's some other major drag strips that are rumored to have been sold. We saw Memphis International Raceway sell this year. Palm Beach International Raceway shut down. What else? There's several of them. You're on the other side of the coin, though, spending $1 million probably on concrete, brand new aluminum bleachers. Like, you're making improvements. How proud of that are you? And what fuels that? Like, what, in a world where people seem to be kind of concerned and are holding on to things and playing it safe, you're clearly not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I might just be sick in the head. I'm not sure. But when I got the place, I set a couple of goals, and I think I was reading something, one of the Drag Illustrated magazines where I was in it, and I think it was for Promoter of the Year. I had said, like, I want to do this and I want to do that. Like, these are things I've wanted to do since before I even owned the track, really. I've been doing the FL2K event since 2013, watching that grow and just seeing the potential and seeing the track grow. And I've seen all these improvements that could be made. And that is what has always, that has always been the fuel for me. Like, that's what gets me going. Get to the point where I can offer more to the sport. That's how I look at it. And I love drag racing. It's my home track. I have a lot of firsts at that track. It's a very special track to me, aside from the fact that I'm now the owner. And I've just always wanted to do it. I can't even, I don't know how to explain it. It's just this thing in me that until it was done, I was literally losing sleep over it. So when the opportunity started to present themselves and, things started to fall into place, I didn't care who was closing or what. I didn't care about any of that. I'm like, I'm going to go. And we have such good support that, everybody says that, oh, it's my supporters. And I mean it. We have such good support that I could jump off the cliff at that point and just be like, screw it, we're going to do it, and it's going to work out.
I love it, man. And I think that it really is indicative and a reminder to everybody that continual investment in the place and reinvestment, it's required. I think that a lot of times, I don't mean to talk out of turn or get anybody up in arms, but there's exceptions to the rule, but a lot of these places that I see struggle, or a lot of the places that I see having issues, are tracks that aren't reinvesting, aren't trying to improve their customer experience, aren't cleaning the bathrooms, aren't shortening the lines at concession stands by opening another window or bringing in outside vendors, right? I mean, the expectation of a consumer in 2022 is crazy high. I mean, we're waiting for drones to drop off our Amazon package same day. So, it may not be that extreme for the track operator or promoter, but it's headed that direction. We expect, people expect a lot. I went to the movies with my kids this weekend and they were like waiting on us. You know what I mean? Like, bringing us nachos. And I'm like, man, I remember when I used to have to walk my ass to the little thing, but that's the world we live in, right? So how do you, obviously brand new concrete, obviously the new grandstands and ongoing investments in the facility. But how else do you respond to that, Victor? Is there other ways? I mean, like you said, promoter of the year, you spent all this money on the racetrack. The facility itself, Bradenton Motorsports Park, was nominated as track of the year. What are you guys doing to improve that experience for your fans and for your racers?
I mean, so we've done a lot. So like the concrete, all new concrete surface. We've done new grandstands, and honestly, I think like I don't think it's a huge secret recipe. I just think all of us, myself and Wade and all of my staff, we just really try to be involved and be engaged. Like, Wade does a great job with our bracket program and our junior dragster program. His son runs the junior. He does amazing with it, but we're all somehow involved or embedded in this thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have that passion, if this is just business for you, it's never going to get to that point. And like another difference, I mean, I'm only 32 years old. This is my 5th year. I'm going on my 5th year as the owner of this track, and I'm 32 years old. I want to own this track for forever. You know what I mean? For another 20, 30 years. I want to give this track to my kids. Like, so for me, it's just so important that I do a good job, and I just love the sport. Like, whenever I can, I try to go racing myself. I watch, this show. I watch the Street Outlaws. I watch as much as I can, and I try to be involved in the sport, and I love it. So I think that passion is that's probably my biggest secret weapon.
I think you're exactly right. I talk to people all the time, and it's that this industry is unique in that regard. And I'm sure there are several that are similar, but the amount of passion, like in many cases, there have been sanctioned series businesses in this space that have succeeded in spite of themselves, right? I mean, just because this is such a uniquely passionate group of people. One of Brett Kepner's go-to kind of sayings is, this is like the only group of people that will drive hundreds of miles in the pouring rain with a 100% chance of rain in the forecast to go to the racetrack, because just that's what we do. We go to the racetrack.
See, like, and at the end of the day, I feel like I'm one of them. Like, I would do that. And I relate so much with our racers and our spectators and just our sponsors. I'm a part of a performance shop, and I have been since 2011. Like, I feel like I see every angle of our industry and of the drag racing. And I mean, from the social media side of it, from the spectator side of it, the sponsors, the racers. And I mean, it just, that mixed in with the passion for the sport, I guess I got lucky.
I love it, man. Well, hey, Mike, JT, Mike, where are you at? I was going to throw you in here and we'll do a little bit of, Mike, I don't know if you have anything specific for Victor, but I just was going to, let's have a little bit of a roundtable conversation just about stuff that's going on in the sport. At the beginning of the show, we talked about how cool it was to see all these events packed out, man. Mike, I'll throw it to you just real quick so we can touch on these things. We saw a capacity crowd in Firebird. We saw a capacity crowd at US 131 in Martin, Michigan, which we forgot to mention early in the show. Obviously, a barn burner. A barn burner.
Great event
there in Norwalk, Ohio for the Night Under Fire. What do you make of that, Mike? I mean, is it just people are caged up and excited to get to the races, or is there a tide shift that's happening?
I think there is. I think that the Snow Prep Kings deal and events like what Vic's doing, events we've done in the past, kind of lean into the independent promotion. And when drag racing was, to me, the healthiest, match racing was healthy. Even guys like John Force, Don Perdome, you could catch at a match race, Don Garlitz. That's really what built the sport. And then it became this strictly eliminator based, national event based type of situation, which, as we've talked about many times, tends to benefit the organization or the sanctioning body more than the individual racer. And I feel like when you have those events, you have those exhibitions that the individual racer can sell their own T-shirts, can do a long burnout, can do stuff that they're probably not going to do at a national event. That's what brings the fans out. They want to see that. They kind of want to see their heroes in the Raw or whatever, to where they're not buttoned up at one of these national events. And Pro Mod is a big part of that. And Vic, I mean, you have as many Pro Mod races and as big a Pro Mod race as any track in the country. So I think you can probably speak to that as well.
Well, I also think, to touch on what I was watching earlier with something that Laughlin said, and Wes and Alex were talking about, I think that the best thing that's happening for the sport right now is people are realizing that engaging with the fans and just being more of an athlete, because that's what they are, and treating it more that way, and selling shirts and taking the time to sign shirts and talking to people and being active on social media, it's growing the sport. I think I think people have been doing that more and more over the last couple of years, but now it's starting to catch traction. And I think the Street Outlaws is a huge part of it. I think our sport is just getting a lot of new eyes, new attention. And I think the racers are starting to see the benefit. And I mean, have some fun. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't want a 12-year-old kid to come and want to take a picture with them? Like, that's great. You know what I mean? So I think taking a little bit of the seriousness out of, the time in between the racing is helping grow the racing.
Yeah. We even had Tony Schumacher on here last week. It's basically agreeing with us that the cars are the stars, which was NHRA's mantra for so many years, was not the best direction to go. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't going to get us where we needed to be, especially in 2022. And here you have the winningest top fuel driver in history, who had to be the most buttoned up for the Army, had the biggest sponsorship in the sport. And he's saying, I feel like he's kind of turned the page, and he's embracing individual, personality and engaging with fans in a different way. So it's even at the top level, and people that have done it all, I think, are seeing that also.
Yeah, and the competitiveness and the match racing, and I think something that the Street Outlaws do very well, and it's really the racers themselves. I don't think it's the show, but all the back and forth banter and the challenging and calling this guy out and calling that guy out. Like, give us something to see. The cars are. I mean, it gets to a point where the cars are one-trick ponies. Like, they're gonna run as fast as they can. The driver's gonna, you're gonna start to learn. They're gonna be predictable. But if I call Wes Buck out for a grudge race, we have no idea what might happen, and that is entertaining. That's fun. So we should all take some responsibility to do our part, do whatever we can to just make this more entertaining and make it more fun. It's supposed to be fun.
There's a lot of opportunity for that too. We actually had a call earlier today where someone mentioned that drag racing becomes hard to watch with all the downtime, especially at some of these events, radio events especially. And how do you fill that? There's a big hole. There's a big opportunity to fill that, and that's what these independent exhibition events do. They fill every second with some kind of entertainment for the fans or whatever. And I think we sometimes forget that.
And I think we also lose sight of the fact that the people can be entertaining. We can make it interesting with this group of people, no matter what they're doing. We don't have to have a stunt bike show necessarily. That's great, but just because we don't have eliminations happening or the fastest cars on the property happening, there are other ways to entertain. I see that from the No Prep Kings deal as well. They're not at all as afraid to toss a racer a microphone, right, to address the crowd. But in the same respect, that racer's not afraid to catch it.
Yeah.
So it takes both. It takes both of us.
We lost a little bit of that in drag racing, I feel. Somewhere along the line, we lost a little bit of that. But it's I'm always thinking of ways to do cool stuff. I bought a T-shirt cannon, and I'm I can't wait to shoot T-shirts into the stands. Free T-shirts. Yeah, cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's just fun. You know what I mean? I'm having somebody build a little deal where two people can sit down and have a practice tree shootout. Again, that's just fun.
We did rental car reverse racing at the World Series of Pro Mod. Everybody, pretty much all of our staff and a couple other people, bring your rental car out. We're going to reverse.
It is full sketchy. Race them to the 330 and rewind. Whew. We had one guy.
I'm glad that wasn't here.
Yeah, it's actually, it may need to be revitalized because it's actually pretty hilarious.
Nate Van Wagenen, editor-in-chief here at the magazine, he wants to bring it back. He wants to start a professional racing organization for reverse.
Well, didn't he win the deal 2 years in a row?
He's shockingly good at it.
It's not for everybody. I remember one time my rental car was a Mustang. Which was surprising, or I don't know whose car it was. It was somebody's car I took and was racing in this reverse race, and it had a rev limiter in rewind, and it only run 8. You know what I mean? Whereas Nate's Kia Soul will run 114 in reverse. It's very funny, man. But you're right, and I think it does take thinking outside of the box, trying some new things. But it really does go back to engaging these folks. And I'm seeing it across the board. I think the NHRA is doing a better job with it. I obviously No Prep Kings, but all these sanctions and series, it seems like we're seeing more and more people willing to do interviews. We're seeing, I go back to the NHRA Media Center interviews, and they're putting out all this content. And it's less header flames, less tire smoke, more smiling faces, more one-liners, more sound bites. That's the stuff that really catches on and people get excited about. I always get a kick out of badass, and it's like action-packed or whatever, and it will get a fraction of the views of Erica Ender's 20-second clip of her saying something, right? And it reinforces that like these personalities and these varying opinions and racers that are willing to share their thoughts and feelings and wear their heart on their shirt sleeve, that's the difference maker. I mean, that's the thing that people really latch onto. So let me ask you this: with a schedule that's as packed as yours, Victor, and you mentioned FL2K, the streetcar industry and the streetcar movement, events like Streetcar Takeover. It's an example I go to quite frequently. I truly believe Justin Keith, Chase Lautenbach have like a tiger by the tail with that particular deal. I know you mentioned your shop induction performance, and you're a streetcar guy through and through. How are we going to marry these worlds? That's like one of my favorite things to talk about, because it does feel like there is a significant disconnect. You and I have talked about this off the air, that like FL2K, the premier amongst, I think, two really premier streetcar events in the United States, one being Texas 2K that's been going on in Houston for a hot minute, and an offshoot of that being your massive event that's been going on since 2011, FL2K in Florida. I don't think a lot of those guys even know what Pro Mod is or even know what the Snowbirds is. How do we fix that?
I think that someone needs to do a race and incorporate both. I've thought about it. It's been talked about, but I think it would be so cool and especially from a fan's point of view, if you can go to the track and let's say you're showing up to watch Stevie Fast race, but then, one of the classes is a streetcar class, and you have Cletus McFarland come out and run a 680. You're going to appreciate that. Like he went on a cruise, he drove around, got in the lanes, and ran a 6-second pass. I don't care who you are or what kind of car you thought you like or whatever. If you like drag racing, that's cool.
It speaks to you. Yeah.
It's gonna take someone just somehow, like maybe at FL2K 1 year I'll have a match race or I'll get 8 pro mods to come, and so it's gonna take something like that. Because I don't know why, it's just there's such a huge disconnect, like you said, but I don't understand it, because we all love the same thing. We love side by side badass racing, like fast cars. That's all we care about.
Well, and I can't help but feel sometimes like I go to these streetcar takeover events because I'm a big streetcar guy, and I look, sometimes you go, man, I didn't know there were this many twin turbo Corvettes and Mustangs and Vipers on the planet, let alone all here at ZMAX Dragway or all here at the Texas Motorplex. I mean, there's hundreds of them, and I can't help but believe that there's some of these guys that have one of these aforementioned 1,500, 2,000 rear wheel horsepower street cars. Hey man, for what you've got in that, you could probably go top sportsman racing. You may be able to go, X275 racing, or you may be able to go big dog racing, but I don't think they know, like it feels there's no one's bridging that gap, you know?
Yeah, they don't. I think the ones that do know about that world, like, my streetcar guys that know about X275 or Pro 275 or whatever it may be, they don't feel that there's a place for them in that world. And that's the issue. But there absolutely is. Like, we could do a streetcar shootout, which that's our biggest class at FL2K. And I want to say that's probably the biggest class at TX2K and Streetcar Takeover. You can have a class like that at the Snowbirds or at US Street or whatever event. You can. So, I mean, it's just going to take somebody doing it. But I think it would be so great for the sport. And I think if they felt welcomed into that world, or, I'm going to say our world, because I feel when I go to those races, I feel just at home as I do at FL2K. If they were welcomed into our world somehow, it could be so good for the sport.
Do you think the drag and drive stuff kind of fits in that too, where that's kind of blending the two together to where it's yes sort of a streetcar deal, it's sort of hardcore drag racing?
Yes and no. The drag and drive stuff is so unique because you could get somebody that. And there's tons of people that will go to a drag and drive event and drive all over the country and race and have fast cars and do well. that have never been to FL2K and never been to TX2K and never been to a Streetcar Takeover event. So I don't know what the reasoning is, but I know when we had Sick Week, they started and finished at Bradenton last year. I saw all these amazing cars. Like, these cars were sick and like great cars. They all made good passes for the most part. They all had their stuff together. They were all willing to do whatever it took to get through the event because, these guys are working on their cars day and night. They have to, doing whatever it took. But I've never seen, I probably recognized 10 of those cars. And
isn't that crazy?
That's a problem.
It is a problem. And that's, part of me, I don't mean to belabor this point, but it's the reason that I feel like there should be some sort of like NHRA outreach program where they're setting up shop at a No Prep Kings event, or they're setting up shop at a Streetcar Takeover. Because there are times that I wonder if they even know that stuff's happening. I know they do to some extent, but man, getting some of those entry level people, and it's, I think at least part of it is that drag racers tend to eat their young. There's we see it amongst promoters. There's kind of like this old guard that don't know how they feel about the new folks, you know what I mean? And then there's the same thing exists in drag racing, where I think a lot of these guys are intimidated, right? They kind of stay in their lane. They're like, that's the serious drag racing. I can't go to that event.
Like we always say.
Very cliquish. It's like a high school hallway. And we've got to find a way to break down some of those walls, because I look at this sport and where our current station, and I'm very thankful. I'm grateful for where we're at, but I'm not satisfied. I feel there's more. I truly believe drag racing is the great American motorsport. If the UFC can put two dudes in a cage and fight damn near to the death and sell out crowds and all this, it's a drag race. It's two people seeing who's better at something. It's easy to understand. It's over fast. It plays to the ever shortening attention span of people in this day and age. And to be here where guys like Tony Schumacher spend 2 years without a sponsor, what the hell? That can't be. And I think until we all start to rally around one another and recognize that a high tide lifts all boats, and what's good for NHRA is likely good for this series, and what's good for this track is likely good for that track, there's always going to be an air of competition. It's part of it. But man, we've got to get the gang together, right?
Yeah. So I've always dreamt of doing an event, and it's probably something I'll do relatively soon. But I've always dreamt of doing an event where at the end of the year we look at like what classes performed the best at Bradenton. So like, let's say we would take Snowbirds, Streetcar Takeover. Streetcar Shootout, Extreme Front Wheel Drive, Ultra Street. Let's just take like our 6 or 7 top classes, the ones that have the most car count and we feel provide the best show, and just do an event, call it whatever, and do that event, and just try to bring everybody from every world we can into the place and see how they like it. I think they would love it.
I 100% agree, and I think that we need to do that. Like, I just had another idea, which is a danger, which my guys around here, they treat that like a 4-letter word. Wes says I have an idea, and they all
we're going to edit this part out of it.
Yeah, they turn off their phones. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, they're not online anymore. They go dark on Slack. But no, there's a lot of work to do in the sport of drag racing, man. But we're in a good spot. I do feel like the tide is turning. I think about car culture, despite all this going green and the electric car movement. Hey, you had a Tesla. Do you still have that? Did you get rid of it?
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I was wondering.
It was weird. It was cool, like the novelty of it, like before I had it. And it's not that I just couldn't do it. I'm a red-blooded car guy, and like I need my car to make noises. I need my car. I couldn't do it. I prefer to go to the gas pump and be robbed at times than to drive the Tesla.
I completely agree, man. What a deal. Well, Victor, thank you so much, man, for spending a little bit of time with us. I think we line up on a whole bunch of stuff, and I can't wait to see what the future holds, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for having me, and keep doing what you guys are doing, because I think that, and I've said it before, but I think that people are starting to see the value in just engaging with everyone and trying to bring people into our sport. And I think a lot of that, like what you guys do, is really that, you know what I mean? And you promote that and you encourage that. And you guys are a huge asset to the sport. Just keep doing what you're doing.
We appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. We will, I promise. All right. We'll talk to you real soon. Okay. Stay out of trouble.
See you.
Thanks, Vic.
Man, we are already into hour 2, halfway through hour 2. This has been a fast-paced one. Real quick, I want to remind everybody that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about our friends at Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and remind you guys, hey, make me full screen again, T. I've got one more. I ain't done yet, right? We got sponsors stacked. We got them stacked up. Ladies and gentlemen, the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by the team at Elite HP, the world leader in used race cars, racing engines, parts, and tools. Located in Fort Worth, Texas, Elite HP is operated by real deal drag racers with over 100 years of combined drag racing experience who can steer you in the right direction for all of your racing needs, whether it's a turnkey race car, a set of Pro Jacks, or something in between. Check out their entire inventory, updated daily at elitehp.com. Mike, did we get our final guest? Did we get things figured out? I'm sorry. We had a little technical difficulty there. But ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I want to remind everybody, please click like, click share, click subscribe. If you're watching along on YouTube, you'll notice you can actually find the show now right there on the homepage of dragillustrated.com. So if you're ever wondering how to take in the show or aren't able to find it, go to dragillustrated.com. You'll be able to watch along. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get this thing going, right? Let's start the party. Here's one of the guys, one of the originators, a wonderful human being and someone who's been driving the bus on the NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series Tour for quite a while and has spearheaded the first, I believe, in a long time, maybe ever, NHRA Pro Mod Shootout, the one, the only Doug Winters. Let's give it up. Woo, Doug, what's up, dude?
What's up, Doug? Hey, guys. How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man, we can hear you well. Are you, I think there's a 69 Chevelle. Is that,
yeah.
is that the hot rod up above us?
Yeah, we haven't got it out yet. We're here in Topeka. Just got here this morning, unloaded enough to get the awnings out and to try to beat some of the sunshine. And the Chevelle's still sitting in here. Q1, it's not till Friday morning. We'll probably, Alan will probably, he uses it kind of interesting, like a lift to check the bearings and stuff. So he says, just leave it on the lift. I'll check the bearings there, and that way you won't have to crawl in under it and when we get it out tomorrow. So that's what it's doing in here.
No shame in that game.
That's what comes from that veteran experience. Because Doug's been doing this as long as anybody else out there. I don't think that a lot of people know your full history and how long you've actually been involved in pro mod racing.
Yeah, forever. I mean, we started out in the 90s, I guess, and Top Sportsman. Started out in Hot Rod and IHRA, actually, and then moved our way up into Top Sportsman. And from Top Sportsman, I got into Nitro Coupes and Super Chevys, kind of where we hit the pro mod scene. Started running nitromethane with all the likes of Bill Coolman and Jim Oddie and Fred Hahn and Jeff Broswich.
I remember those days well because they told guys like my dad, "Hey, we're going to Nitro Coupes only. This is what we're doing." And I don't think my dad's still gotten over that.
You got to put at least 3% in the tank to make it smell like nitromethane, and you would be surprised how much 3% actually will water your eyes when you're not used to it. And then at the end, we're tipping the thing up, trying to get, the rule was 30, but rumor has it that Coolman's going way above 30 at most times, but the rule was 30. So we got pretty good at going to tune up for 30, but then we kind of jumped into AMS. I don't know if you remember them when Dave Wood. I actually drove his 57 and not one of the first exhibition NHRA events, but I think it was the second or third, maybe the second year at Gainesville. That's how we got started in the NHRA, and then kind of went away for a while and got back in it and started running NHRA with our 57 that we had at the time of maybe about 7 or 8 years ago now. So we've been doing this pretty much full steam for 7 years on NHRA.
You had a 55 though back in the early days, right?
57.
Well, no, we had a 55 that had the Hooters. It was the Hooters.
Yeah, the Hooters car. Yep.
So I
think people will remember that one.
That's before there was Hooters everywhere, and our deal was us being always the showman and marketeer and stuff. There weren't Hooters everywhere, so what we would do is book match races in. I booked match race Scotty Cannon a number of times, and a lot of different guys that I would say, okay, we'll bring the Hooter girls from the local Hooters and have them sign autographs. And one year in Norwalk at Night of Fire, that's when they had the Night of Fire too. So the Hooters 55, we could qualify in the top 8 of the Top Sportsman to get into the Night of Fire. And that's when we had the Hooter girls there at Norwalk. I must have sold thousands of T-shirts one night. It's just
and you're continuing that on now. You got the D-Wagon girls or the what's your current sponsor?
Steiner.
Yeah, Steiner.
Yeah, it's Steiner guys. Steiner girls.
So we use the girls for our hospitality, right? So the deal with Steiner, we invite in their VIPs. Ground support equipment of airports, because obviously wherever we go, there's an airport. Matter of fact, Topeka, you can see it from here.
Yeah, you can see
there's an airport. So we're going to have guests in for that buy ground support equipment from Steiner, and then that's the girls' job to make sure the hospitality, go get them at the gates, give them the tickets, bring them to the pit area, make sure they're taken care of. And so that's their role and stuff associated with that, plus doing social media. So it kind of works hand in hand. Everybody, it's a good way to get the customers involved and have everything work out for the weekends.
What do you make of ProMod as a whole? Talking about how you've seen this thing from the Top Sportsman days to the Nitro Coupe movement, and we've seen this sport, this particular type of drag racing take on a lot of different shapes and forms, right? Obviously, the AMS staff leasing series started there in like 2000, exhibition series inside the NHRA, small car count. I think it was like an 8-car field. They'd get 12, 13, 14 cars. Then we see the ADRL explode on the scene, and there's been the XDRL, and there's the PDRA, NMCA, and ProMod is at the heart and soul of so many of these different sanctions and series. Did you ever see that or forecast that back in those early days, that this could be something that, because John Four III, a longtime photographer of ours here at Drag Illustrated, he's challenged me on a couple of occasions. He goes, man, there's nothing like ProMod. There's not there's not pockets of pro stock cars racing all over the country every weekend. There's not pockets of nitro funny cars, not to the level that we see in ProMod. Do you find it as unique, and are you as I do, and are you at all surprised?
I'm a little surprised that it's gotten where it is. At one point, ProMod was, like you said, it kind of goes in cycles as well. But back when we were running Super Chevy, we were on TV on ESPN2 all the time, and ESPN. And back to, you guys' idea of personality of the person and not the race car, that's what that show had as well was, everybody would actually come to the Super Chevy show to see the Nitro Coupes and see the drivers. So that kind of gained a lot of momentum back in the day. And then when, obviously IHRA started the ProMod series off Top Sportsman, kind of grew some more. And I've raced them all. I've raced IHRA ProMod, I've raced ADRL, XDRL, name your DRL, and I've been there. But really NHRA is where we see the bang for the buck for the sponsors, and bringing the customers in and showing them the entertainment value associated with drag racing and how we can do the hospitality and stuff. So yeah, I've seen it explode, I've seen it contract, and nowadays I think hopefully we're back on that upswing for NHRA for ProMods, and hope it stays here for a while.
It does feel like things are coming back around. And let's focus specifically on the series that you're most intimately involved in, the Fuel Tech NHRA ProMod Drag Racing Series presented by D-Wagon. What's your take here at the midpoint of the season? There's been a lot of hubbub over rules. We've seen a lot of people change combinations and lots of talk about combinations. We've got this shootout coming up in 2 weeks at Brainerd, in Brainerd, Minnesota. The D-Wagon shootout, $25,000 to win. Many of the top points earners will be there contending for that prize on I believe it's going to conclude on Friday night, right? Saturday night. Okay, excuse me.
Yeah, first round's Friday night, and then Saturday's is the race.
Okay, so how do you feel about this the state of the union, so to speak, for NHRA ProMod? I know the rules, like I said, had some folks up in arms, but things seem to be kind of stabilizing.
I think they're stabilizing. I'm hoping that NHRA leaves the rules along for a while, and so everybody can get the gist of how it's going to shake out for the next 3 or 4 races at least. Maybe just something after Indy if something's still askew. I know, and it's hurt our car count, and unfortunately, where here again, rules are rules, and I understand everybody wants to be competitive and stuff. We're just trying to make sure that the class is sustainable. And to do that, I guess you got to have the rules package that everybody wants to play with. And that's the hard thing to do since we have so many combinations that you can do. Since we're doing this, I'm thinking, and we're adding all these combinations, and I see where NHRA is going to allow fuel funny car now and top alcohol. Shoot, we might as well put that in ProMod too, right? Or I can have nitro injected ProMod.
I mean, hey man, we've seen a couple of them. We've seen a couple attempts, right? I mean, we've seen a couple of attempts at that, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it feels like that's kind of the thought process is let's see how opened up we can get. But what do you think is the biggest deciding factor? Is it that air of competition that they feel that the playing field is level and that they have a chance to win? Or are there other factors? Is it about payout? Is it about, because I put a lot of emphasis personally on something that you mentioned earlier about value for sponsors, right? I mean, I don't know that there's a bigger stage for door slammer racing than what exists at this moment than what exists within the NHRA. I mean, it's a great place to take your guest. It's a great place to do a hospitality. The place is packed. There's all sorts of people there. There's all sorts of other brands there. I'm surprised that isn't enough for some of these guys.
Well, they don't need it, Wes. When you look at them, there's a very few of us that actually have, names
real
on the
sponsors.
side of real sponsors that are actually, it's not my company, right? I'm actually, supporting a company associated with the car. So it gets down to the rules, right? Why do I want to go play when I'm not competitive? I've got I don't have to be there. We look at each other and go, wow, we got to go to Tulsa and Brainerd. That's a long ways, but we got to be there. Right. Whereas these guys are sitting around the shop going, we can't be competitive. Why do I want to drive, 20 hours and not be competitive? I don't have to be there. So that's what ends up happening. So I think the rules have a lot to do with it. There's other factors in there of how we get treated, where we're parked, et cetera, the payout, et cetera. But, the payout thing is now a moot point, in my opinion. I mean, we get $35,000 purse per event. So you qualify, you get your entry fee back plus just for qualifying and your chances to win the money above that. So, it's with $35,000 per 10 races, that's $350,000 purse for the series and not including the points. Now we have the D-Wagon shootout on top of that. It is $25,000 purse, but it's a purse. So we're giving 10 to the winner all the way down. We're trying to pay everybody, incentivize them to come to Brainerd, right? I know it's not that much, but diesel fuel prices, so everybody gets some money. The winner's going to get 10 grand, but we're really looking forward to it. I don't know if you know Tom at Cold Hard Art. He does a lot of he's doing a trophy for us he's doing a trophy for us for the D-Wagon shootout. So it's going to be a Tom special that we're going to present at Brainerd for the shootout. So the winner's going to get that, something special to have. So, and you're right. I think this is the first shootout that NHRA's had for pro mods. So we hope to make a statement associated with this. NHRA and Fox just announced that they're going to have a special show on the shootout. So not only are you get our normal show at Brainerd on FS2, we're also before that going to have a whole half-hour show on the D-Wagon shootout. So they're trying to do some other things associated with it to try to bring us to the forefront of NHRA and Fox Sport as well.
Does that feel, I mean, that's got to feel good, right? I mean, just to feel like you're included, to have those conversations, because that's something that seemed to have been lacking in years past. It's kind of like the NHRA not really wrapping their arm around this pro mod community the way maybe they should have. But it feels like times have changed. And I think one of our biggest challenges here in the coming months will be just to change the narrative, right? I mean, because you made a great point. Everybody thinks, I mean, there was some news stories that circulated in early in the year that, there wasn't any purse for the Gator Nationals, blah, 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 blah. But it's like crickets right now when there's $350,000 up for grabs. It's like, where's the outcry, of optimism and positivity that, hey man, there's a $35,000 purse at every NHRA national event. I do think that the NHRA is tasked with telling that story a little more effectively, because we've got to change that narrative. Everybody thinks that it's a pay-to-play country club. There's no money up for grabs. It's all bad, but that's not even remotely close to the case.
No, not anymore. It used to be, as you recall, you had to, either bring a sponsor with you to buy an event or something like that, or have enough points to get in here. I got in here because I went to comp eliminator and got points, but nonetheless, it's not like that anymore. You can, if you got a pro mod license and your car passes tech, you can buy a tech card and come compete with us. So, it's not like that anymore. And like I said, the pay is there. The entertainment aspect is there. So if you're looking to get a sponsor, this is the place to be. So maybe you don't have one now. I think if you come over to NHRA show them the benefit, show companies the benefit of what you can provide them, then the sponsor will come. So maybe it kind of goes hand in hand to take advantage of NHRA from a standpoint of that phase as well.
Well, we've got over a dozen cars on the entry list, Doug, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. And I think that we all kind of have to take it upon ourselves to tell this story just repeatedly. I know there are people, I say this a lot, but you have to say it a lot. You have to say it 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways, because there's so much going on that it's hard to ensure that you caught that person at a moment when they were listening. They were probably listening to a podcast or watching a video, right? Or sending a text or checking their email. So you got to say it a lot if you want to cut through. But right now, looking at the NHRA entry list for Topeka, we got over a dozen cars. I mean, are any surprises for you? Anything that you think we're going to see this weekend in Topeka that may be unusual? I mean, that's typically a challenging environment. Depending on the time of year, but I anticipate it being a relatively challenging environment. We've seen this event provide some really crazy moments in the sport of drag racing. I think about Jeremy Ray's unfortunate accident there. We've seen some wild stuff. What's your take on the weekend? Anything? Do you think are there any surprises you think that we're going to see?
It's going to be really interesting to see how this hot weather, because it's supposed to be 100 degrees, I think, here one day. Now, I don't know what the water gauge is going to be associated with that, but it'd be interesting to see how that's going to affect the screw blowers and the 65 over from the 75. Is it going to affect that more than it would a Roots or a Pro Charger? I don't know. I think that's the unknown to find out associated with the 12 cars that we got here. Is the screws still going to be able to compete at 65 over? I think. But unfortunately, I think Stevie may be the only one that has a screw here. If I'm looking at the 12 entries, correct. And unfortunately, that's what was surprises to me too. Was I only have 12 cars. I tried for the D-Wagon shootout because of this Topeka to Brainerd back to back. Trying to get cars to come to make sure that we had a full field. It didn't happen, and I understand why it didn't happen. Some guys wanted to be here, but schedules just didn't permit it. It's a long haul for a lot of us out here to Topeka, but we're going to make the best of it, and it's going to be 12 cars here in Topeka. Hopefully, I have more than that coming up to Minnesota at Brainerd for the shootout. If not, we'll make it a 12-car shootout. So, whatever the case may be, we're going to make the best out of it, and hopefully put on a good show. Man,
when I look at it though, and I truly believe you've got some of the baddest dudes on the planet Earth showing up here, right? So for whatever you lack in quantity, you more than make up for in quality of cars, because to me, it's still without question that the ultimate final proving ground for door slammer drag racing is the Fuel Tech NHRA Pro Mod Series, right? I mean, it's quarter mile. It's like the last remaining quarter mile series. It is not for the faint of heart. It's 5 seconds, 250 miles an hour. It's cars, a variety of different cars, all the best drivers, all the best tuners and crew chiefs. I mean, it's a wonder. I hate that situation for you, Doug, because I know you've really tried hard to make sure, but I do think the tide's turning. I truly do. And I think if the series stays the course, y'all will be rewarded for it. I truly believe it.
Yeah. To your point, there's no ducks out here. So
no.
It's kind of a funny story. Back when we have 18, 19 cars, 1 or 2 or 3 cars are going to go home, and we'll qualify and go into the last session. We'll be like number 12, and we'll still be scared, shitless that we're going to get bumped because everybody behind you is more than capable of jumping ahead of you from number 12 spot. So but that's to your point that there is no ducks here, and even though there is 12 cars, it's the end frontier for NHR Pro Mod. We think quarter mile racing.
I couldn't agree more, Doug. Well, hey, dude, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us on Wednesday afternoon. Always good to hear from you. I look forward to seeing you in Brainerd for the D-Wagon shootout. I think it's going to be a great deal for the sport of drag racing. Brainerd deserves a hell of a show. That's a great, incredible fan base that exists in the sport of drag racing. I'm glad to get up there and see everybody in the zoo and everywhere else they roam up there. So thanks, Doug. Be safe this weekend. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Talk soon, brother. All right, guys, I want to remind you all real quick. You ready? One more reminder before we call it a day here on the Wes Buck Show. I want to remind you that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by FlowRacing.com. If you're a drag racer or a drag racing fan, you got to get on board with Flow Racing. The world leader in sports live streaming, Flow Racing provides unlimited access to drag racing's biggest events like Donald Long's Lights Out, No Mercy, and Sweet 16. Every stop on the Pdra and NMCA tours. Funny Car Chaos World, you guys.
Thunderstorms.
Lost power, he said.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Thunderstorms. Yeah. It never fails. It never
Dude,
fails.
we need some
you just look at your watch
Texas.
and then just pull an umbrella out and then
we got plenty of rain here. I think the only place with more rain is anywhere Tyler Crossnow is.
Yeah, good
That's
point.
true.
Good point. Guys, here at the last part of the show, again, I want to thank everybody for being
happy
a part
hour.
of this. We had a hell of a crowd here, but let's do about 15, 20 minutes of happy hour, go around the room. I don't have a cocktail, so I'll just sip the remnants of my
I'll drink for you.
Coke Zero. Thank you. So let's just go around the room here real quick. Chris Harris in the comments, NHRA would crap their pants if there was gambling on the line. I missed that one. That's a good comment.
Chris Harris has got all the comments today.
I haven't seen him, man. Hey, Andy Cowan. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it, man. All right, so what do you guys got for me? We didn't get to talk earlier about Funny Car Chaos. We didn't get to really talk about the Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods. I was taking notes. We didn't really talk a whole lot about Norwalk. We got a comment here, Sick Week 2023, are we coming? 100%. I'll be there. I intend to be there with a car to race. I don't know that it'll be like a race car per se. It's just hard telling at this point. I may take my Camaro, which is basically bone stock, but just to participate and be involved. But I anticipate that was one of the best. I ripped my arm off. I've got a freaking massive L scar, which my daughter reminds me all the time stands for loser. You know, Sophia says that. You got it written on your arm, Dad. Loser. But even though I got injured during that event, it still is like my highlight of 2022. Like I had a freaking ball hanging out with you guys, beating up and down the highways and byways of America, getting lost. I mean, I felt really bad. One night I led Alex Taylor and her dad several miles in the wrong direction in the middle of the night, and we had to do a U-turn on a dark 2-lane road in the middle of nowhere, Florida. It was a memory-making experience, and I gotta say, actually, Chris Harris, I tore my bicep tendon completely off the bone while trying to yank a slick off the back of Joe Barry's 55 Chevy. You know how it is. 56.
When biceps are really, really small, it doesn't have as much to connect.
Really stressing it as much as possible to get that.
I can't help but get involved when I go to deals like that. That's why I can hardly go to a drag race and not have like a dog in the fight. Because
this is a fact. If Wes has got like a radar, anybody swinging a motor in any of the pits, anywhere, he's there. He's in there. He's getting his hands dirty.
I love it, dude. I mean, it's my favorite thing. I mean, I literally, if we could just arrange a pit thrash like out in front of my office building right now, I'm in. Like hotter the better, more misery. There's just an energy about it. Some of my favorite drag racing moments are amidst, Mike, you know what I'm talking about. Like when you're up against you're up against it, backs against the wall, insurmountable odds, and you rally together with your brothers and sisters in arms, and you give it a go. It's my favorite thing.
All right, guys, come to the lanes. 15 minutes, and like we got both heads off.
Both heads off.
This motor pistons laying everywhere. We're like, there's no way we can get this together in 15 minutes.
And you can ask. I mean, I saw it from. And it's like people, we can't help but turn that into a competition, right? I saw this. Right. I was making a post on dragillustrated.com earlier this week, and it was like Justin Ashley's post-race report from Elon Warner. And I'm reading through it, looking for like some killer quotes. And he's like, the real number for our team, 47 minutes or whatever, right? And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And I continue reading. Well, he was talking about how quickly they got the car turned around. Like, I mean, he was celebrating that. Right? Like, hey, no matter we lost in the second round or whatever, but man, we turned that bad boy around in 42 minutes or whatever the number was. And it's just, it's that case for everybody. When you turn it into a race, you turn it into something that you want to get done as quick as possible. I mean, even when we were at that stop on Sick Week 22, we were in Valdosta, Georgia at Ozzie Moya's South Georgia Motorsports Park, right? A very legendary racing facility. And there was no rush whatsoever, but it's, people just going crazy, flying around trying to get Joe Barry's car switched over from race trim to street trim and get Alex Taylor's car bandaged together so they could make the drive to Ocala. I mean, everybody dives in, and it's probably one of my funnest, favorite memories. Definitely my favorite. I'm going to be there for the whole bit.
Year. Me and JT.
And it does. Chris Harris, to be fair, when a slick hangs up on the threads, it just dead stop. Well, you know how you have to rock them, especially when they have low quarter panels like those 56 Chevys, 55s, 56 Chevys. I mean, any door car can be a little bit of a pain to get off. But, dude, trying to get a big tire off a car like that with a really low wheel opening, that's a nightmare, man. The thing might as well have side skirts on it or whatever, because it was almost impossible to get off. And I finally got it almost rocked off there, right? And I give one more tug of it, and I get queasy, like lightheaded. I hear this snap. I actually hear it sounded like tearing denim, like ripping jeans. I compared it to someone dragging a floor jack across an asphalt floor, like just. And then I got dizzy, and the next thing I know, I was headed to the airport because I couldn't get to a hospital. It's a long story. Anyways, still a highlight of 2022, and I think we got to do the whole thing again. We had an absolutely fantastic time. I think that's a group of people that recognize some of what we were talking about earlier. It's a party. It's a good time. I mean, they had entertainment wrapped in. They threw a party the night before the deal kicked off at Cletus McFarland's Freedom Factory down there next door to Bradenton Motorsports Park. They had cool stops along the way, cool restaurants that they would do events at, and they just made it fun for people. Like, there's obviously an air of competition. People wanted to win. They had killer trophies made, and everything about it was badass. But it was more about being a part of it. It was more about the expense, the adventure, and the experience. And I look around the world right now in events across the board. That's the play, right? Like, payout's great. Big money, obviously an important part of it, but a really memorable experience is what's driving the bus, man.
No doubt about it.
So answer to that.
I think I'm going to take my golf cart and beer wagon and drive around.
Oh, dude, that would be good. Yeah, that would be good. How about this? Kevin Stevenson says, hey, Greg Fergus, thank you, man. We really appreciate it. Kevin Stevenson says, Tulsa is going to be a madhouse this weekend. New car debuts, Top Fuel, and Alex showing up. It sounds like they've canned the Top Fuel exhibition, correct?
That's what we heard.
That's what I've been told. Scott Palmer, NHRA Top Fuel star. I mean, understandable. I do think there's just some concern right now of making more dangerous and already inherently dangerous thing. It's no secret at this point that unfortunately the drag racing and high performance car community lost one of our members over the weekend. Ryan Fellows unfortunately passed away in an accident during filming for whatever the season they are on of Street Outlaws America's List, or Fastest in America, whatever it's called. They're filming in Las Vegas, tragic accident. And I think it just, those moments, and our hearts, everybody here at Drag Illustrated, our hearts go out to everybody that was affected, impacted by this. Our entire sport is impacted by this, to be honest with you. I think that this is, I've mentioned it a lot, but this is a uniquely passionate group of people. There's a real sense of community, even though we all kind of operate differently and we all run in certain circles. We're all racers at our core. And I think the entire industry, the entire community mourns when things like this happen. Heartbreaking moment, but I do think it just took the wind out of the sails of that entire group right now. I can't imagine going from Vegas and, in that situation unfolding before your eyes and then going right into, kind of the big restart of the No Prep Kings season. They've been off for the better part of a month. It was weird. We talked about No Prep Kings almost nonstop, and then it was just a screeching halt, right? They took a summer break, which I believe is smart. Great move.
And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of the testing, combination changes. And I do feel like it's smart, especially in a no prep situation, to take off that hottest part of the summer.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. Speaks to the seasonality of some of this stuff. We've been talking about it with radio racing all year long, right? Like, you may as well know what you are, right? And radio racing, as an example, it's seasonal. That's something that you can do early in the year or late in the year. You need good conditions. You need manageable temperatures to make it a great race. So I don't think it's any huge surprise or shock to see No Prep Kings take one of the most intense summer months off.
And Mike Bowman he has his new car this weekend, and Kevin Stevenson sent us a clip of a test hit on it. I'll play it here.
Well, I'll never be able to hear again.
Yeah, that was loud.
I don't know why that was so loud. Oh my goodness, we gotta. Yeah. But I think it actually blew my speakers out, possibly.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it blew my headphones out.
You finally did it, JT.
I finally did it,
man. Yeah.
Yeah, it literally blew my speakers out. Like they're not working anymore. That's hilarious. Anyways, dude, this is. I think it's exciting, but it is going to get things interesting in a hurry because now all of a sudden we've got a slew of new purpose-built hot rods, right? These aren't old back half cars that are being, modified to fit the rules.
That's a Pro Charge combination, is it not?
Yes, that's a Pro Charge combination.
Which is a departure for Mike, right?
Well, he's always been a turbo guy, I mean, he's been a turbo guy, but earlier this year, he made the move to a Pro Charge combination just for the tunability of it. You hear this a lot, but it's a much more manageable power adder, right? It's a much more linear power adder. It's
especially 8th mile.
Especially in 8th mile competition. And I think it just lends itself to the no prep arrangement. I'm surprised to see these guys all making the move to screw blowers.
Yeah, you would think it would follow.
Kevin says he's been
Pro
Charger for a year and a half.
Oh yeah, I guess it was middle of last season when he made that move.
Okay.
Yeah,
you would think that more people would be following the path of the most dominant guy out there with Ryan and the Pro Charger combination. But and the screw blower, again, we say screw blowers ruin everything. I think they just have so much power to burn that it gives you just that much of a window.
Yeah, there's some great comments here, and it's 100% true. I think that you've got really high-end Pro Chargers that there's a limited number of, right? And it's funny because we've seen this happen with Roots superchargers. In NHRA Pro Mod competition, you've got Al Billis does a blower, you've got Mike Janis does a blower, you've got Chuck Ford does a blower, and if you don't have one of those, premier programs, you're probably you're racing for second place by and large. And I think there's a certain amount of that going on with if you weren't able to get the latest greatest Pro Charger, of which there was a limited inventory, you were kind of looking around for options, and that option without question is a screw blower. They're notoriously reliable. There was a moment here where they were not readily available, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see more and more and more people go that way. There's a ton of data around that combination, right? People have been running them forever, right? On alcohol funny cars and outlaw pro mods and top alcohol dragsters. So, I mean, there's a lot of data to lean on. There's a lot of parts. I'm not surprised, but I do believe that everywhere those things go, they cause problems. And we've seen it in NHRA Pro Mod recently. We've seen it in other sanctions and series. Maybe it will be lesser when they're more reeled in. We've seen them cause a lot of problems in no rules type of situations, but they are massively efficient. They don't create as much heat as some of these massively limited Roots blowers do. So Marty Robertson and company and the Badfish Racing Camp won't be the last team we see switch to a screw blower. That's for sure. Do you guys hear me talking about this with Alex Laughlin? Do wonder though, at what point do you start to lose? And don't get me wrong, I know that the ship has already sailed, but when you've got teams changing engine combinations between events, right? I mean, we saw Justin Swanstrom switch from blower to Pro Charger to a screw blower essentially overnight, seeing the same thing from Marty Robertson and company. Personally, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but it's not super relatable, right? I mean, are they getting over center here faster than anticipated?
I think it's kind of right on schedule. I feel like this has been coming. Someone made a good comment. I think it was Scott Malpass in the comments that NPK is peaking right now, like lights out 7. And I think that's a pretty good observation. We've been saying that once the stuff kind of comes in and it goes over center, it's going to happen quickly. So we'll see. We talked about the Top Fuel thing. We talked about these Manny Vajinga and et cetera, wanting into the Invitational. Marty, we'll see how quickly all of this actually happens and how it goes over center. But it is somewhat concerning. But I also think, though, that a lot of these, especially any non-nitrous combination, is kind of based around the same platform, all of these boosted combinations. So I think that you're seeing maybe some advancements or willingness to just like what Swanstrom did, just take his block and put the induction on the top instead of out front, right? And I think that is something that we're going to see more and more of. But it definitely is concerning.
But I find it concerning.
At the same time, though, for drag racing as a whole sport, they've brought the casual fan that watched the show, that watched the original Street Outlaws show, and they have now almost transformed that fan into now watching the No Prep Kings, which a lot of badass hot rods are on there, right? Drag cars. I mean, so they've taken this casual fan and now they've made him a fan of more drag racing style at a track. And I mean, that's a great thing.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
To bring all those people over this far, because now, say a pro mod race isn't unrelatable to that fan now, and they've probably learned a lot along the way watching the show.
But with the OG show, you see them making this big step back in time, so to speak, right? By going back to the small tire cars, trying to get more recognizable stuff. So it seems like they recognize that it's escalating rapidly. Because I wonder how many seasons away we are.
And they've got
small
no prep
tire
kings
stuff
now. For the the crazy cars, I guess you'd say, for something that's more purposely built and for the track. So they've got that over here with no prep kings. So you can go back to the OG style, I think, over here.
Yeah, you can. A lot of times I think it's important to be willing to do that. That's something that you don't see race promoters willing to do very often, is press the rewind button. I remember one time I got a call from it was somebody involved with the Pdra, and it was early on in the formation of that new sanction and series, and it was like one of those "what would you do" questions. It was kind of open-ended, and I couldn't help but tell him I would run it back. And the guy goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It's gotten too far out of control too fast, and we need to hit the reset button. And it's not going to be fun for everybody. Nobody's going to be setting career record or career best maybe for a year or two, but we need to take this thing back in time, because you get all this money that came in at that time. It was a bunch of foreign money, right? It was the Al-Anabi teams and the Q80s and the whatever else. There was a slew of Bahrain 1. There was all this money coming in from overseas, buying the best of everything, buying the best tuners, buying multiple spares, the latest and greatest, the lightest weight, all these things. And it took something that was already completely out of control, and it just made it way worse almost overnight. And it felt like, and you saw people letting their cars sit on jack stands. You saw people selling out. You saw people going sportsman racing, going bass fishing or whatever else. And it was the only way, in my opinion, in those moments to go back. You got to run it back a little bit. I think that that's some of the magic of the Midwest Drag Racing Series. And I don't think that group gets the credit they deserve, is not being so wrapped up in setting records every weekend, right? Like, there's a lot of these sanctions and series. We used to joke and get frustrated about it when people acted like Donald Long's events didn't happen at all if there wasn't a new world record.
Or couldn't remember who the winner was. Only who flew through the air and who set a record.
Yeah, who set a record and who had a terrible crash. And it was like the winning and going rounds had become, I don't know, completely underappreciated. And I think that, like, Midwest Drag Racing Series, specifically with their pro mod category, I can't speak to they run a lot of different cars. They got funny cars. They got all sorts of stuff going on. But specifically with their pro mod class, they don't have an index per se. They don't have a breakout, but they kind of have a target ET. And they recognize that if we can keep all these cars running, like, let's just say mid to high 360s and low 370s, we can provide a great place to race for a whole lot of people and try to keep it from getting completely out of control. Like we've seen, there's a couple of, extinct dinosaurs, a couple of classes that you can point to that have kind of gone the way of the dodo. And it's because of this rapid escalation. I look at ADRL and PDRA at Pro Extreme, right? And then there's also the Radial versus the World, where it was almost like a race to the bottom, like who could get to zero elapsed time. And it was winning and losing had become secondary to setting records. And I think every part of drag racing could benefit from recognizing they had Speed Week. It got canceled, unfortunately. I was planning on going, but Speed Week in Bonneville, if you want to land speed race, there's places to do it. Right? I mean, there's places to go set world records. There are places to go compete against yourself. I don't know that every drag strip under the sun needs to be that. And I think it falls on all of us to be more excited about. I mean, ask Manny Bajinga and some of these guys that have won a 5-round race. Ask Mike Bowman. Ask, some of these guys that have won 5 rounds of eliminations. Ask any of these back of the track guys that have had to go through 120 cars. Ain't none of those dudes setting career bests. You know what I mean?
Right,
they're basically racing on a gravel road. But man, it's racing. It's about competition. And I really do think that is one of the issues that gets us to the bottom quickly, is this kind of unrelenting desire to keep pushing and pushing. Funny Car, Top Fuel. Right now, people may not realize, but those classes are both basically index classes, right? With the advent of the rev limiter in Top Fuel and Funny Car, I mean, that's like a Funny Car is a 385 class and Top Fuel is like a 365 class, 320, 370 class. And I would argue that the action is as good as it has ever been. But let's be honest, they interviewed on the television broadcast, the Fox broadcast just a couple of weeks ago, they asked, gosh darn it, I'm drawing a blank on his name, Robert Height's crew chief,
Jimmy Prock.
I was thinking Jeff Prock, but that's his brother, the nitrous guy, Applied Nitrous Technology, a longtime friend of Drag Illustrated, right down the road from Mike's house in Mooresville, North Carolina. Shout out to Jeff and Dita Prock. Anyways, Jimmy Prock, he said right on the broadcast on Fox in front of God and everyone else that, hey man, we're not probably going to go 340. They changed the header, the way the headers are laid back. With the rules we have now, we're probably not going to see one of these cars run 340, maybe a Funny Car. And I found that interesting that they wanted to make that point, because I don't give a shit. It's great if it happens, great, but I don't know that I would have put that on TV, because I'm going, I don't know that I would tell everybody we're never going to break that record. You know what I mean? Like, let that hang out there maybe, but it doesn't detract from the action at all. I want to see heads up drag racing, side-by-side competition. I get it. I love the numbers. You see me post all these graphics on social media, and I get that stats are a big part of sports, but they're not the only part of sports.
Yeah. The stats mean shit if you don't win.
Yeah.
In every other sport, maybe your next contract, but
I agree. Look at all the hate you guys give me with freaking LeBron James. He's got all the stats, right?
Well,
he's a stat sheet filler or whatever. But the first thing everybody says is like, hey, this dude.
Jordan's, but
right. He did. How many rings has he got? Yeah. Right. And I look at round wins. That's why I've been hyper aggressive with promoting these round win stats that we've been able to muster up with the help of the NHRA. Because man, that's what I'm talking about. I want to know that Erica Enders is 857 for the season so far. Right? That's incredible.
That's crazy.
Right? That's absolutely insane. I want to know. I went through and figured out the win percentages for every active NHRA Pro Mod driver last night. Jose Gonzalez is 70% career. Right? He's won 70% of the races that he's been in. That's incredible. He's 52-22. Stevie Jackson, same thing. Stevie Jackson's 94-42. He's won 69% of the races that he's been in. He's won them. And I think that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the guys who are difference makers, the guys who win more often than they lose. That needs to be more of the storyline. And we get ourselves in trouble when everybody gets all, up in arms about who's going to run 340s, who's going to run 350. I think it's a bad thing. All right, guys, what else do we got?
Yep. I think we about got it, buddy. Let's wrap her up.
We got it covered. Jimmy Prock is a tuning god. Let's be honest that you have to limit stuff, but yes, don't say you're going to make bracket cars. Yeah, and I don't think we want to make bracket cars out of anything. You know what I'm saying? I think it's not a matter. It's just not being so wrapped up in setting records every single time out. When the stars and moon align and you get a record run, I think it's fantastic. But I don't think we need to go into every weekend expecting that and feeling that that's the only way that we can make a difference as a sport. So anyways, guys, I think we've lost Mike. JT, appreciate the time. Everybody, I want to tell you thanks for being a part of this deal. Each and every Wednesday, it seems like the crowd's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's an exciting thing to see. I agree with Scott Malpass. I think we're about to see the end, personally, of the Capco drought. I think we're going to see Steve Torrance in the winner circle. If not in Topeka, he's going to get her done in Brainerd. I really believe it's right there. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a bunch. JT, thanks. Huge shout out to our guest, Alex Laughlin, Victor Alvarez, and of course, Doug Winters. Guys, we'll see you at the drag strip. And if not there, we'll see you next Wednesday right here on the Wes Buck Show, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time every Wednesday afternoon. Thanks, guys.
See y'all.